Alright, y'all, we're back, and I'm going to give you a tour around the Lightroom Classic CC interface. One thing that's different about Lightroom than most other Adobe products is everything is kind of stable. You can't really move things around. Like Photoshop, you can move different icons in Illustrator and InDesign. You can move different things around, different tools around. Where in Lightroom, everything is kind of stable where it is. All of these menus have these little carrots right here that you can expand or retract these menus, right? So we can expand and retract everything like this, but that's kind of the limit of how much you can move stuff around in Lightroom, which I think is actually really helpful, especially if you're just learning how to edit photos or use this software for the first time ever. I think one thing with Photoshop that gets hard is when everybody has their preferences set up different. And I'm demoing Photoshop, and people are like, my screen doesn't look like that. So your screen should look just like this. Up here we have the main drop-down menus that kind of every software has. I'm obviously on a Mac, but I know Windows do as well. I do know that, I think I might have mentioned this in an early video, but Adobe has made a lot of efforts to make their interface pretty interchangeable and very similar between Mac and Windows. So even if you're on a Windows computer, it should look pretty similar. These menus up here, the drop-down menus, we're not going to really use those. The only time I use it is to make the new catalog right there. But besides that, I don't really use these because all of these controls are redundant inside the actual software. We can do all these same things that these menus have inside the actual interface of the software. So I'm just going to give you a tour around. First things first, we're going to look at the navigator. The navigator is just a preview window that's showing us our photos. Right now I have this one selected. I can click around to different photos. Whatever photo, I'm just using the arrow keys on the keyboard. Whatever photo I have selected shows in the navigator window. There's two viewing options that I want you to know how to use right now, which is the grid view, which we're currently in, or the single view. So we can control with these two buttons right here. This would be the grid view. This would be, I think this is called the loop view. Yep, loop view. So when you hover over it, you see that the cursor says loop view E. That means the keyboard shortcut for loop view is E. If we go over grid view, you see the keyboard shortcut is G. So if we're in loop view, I could just hit G on my keyboard and it'll bring me to grid view. If I'm in grid view and I want to look at an individual photo in loop view, I could hit E. So G and E are really good keyboard shortcuts to know so that you can kind of quickly go through these images. You know, I have all these images that are very similar. I could go, which one do I like best? I could go E, and then arrow over, and look at all 5 of those and make my determination which one I like best. And remember, everything's being shown up here in the navigator window. So you can either click on these things here, grid view or loop view, or use the keyboard shortcuts G and E. So right here is just all of my images. I'm going to expand the catalog tab. I just imported 241 images into this new collection. So that's all photographs. And as I add more photos in, this number will change. And it will always show you your previous import. So if I were to add 30 more photos into my catalog, it would say all photographs 271, previous import 30. Does that make sense? And you can always click on this. So if I just wanted to look at, if I added 30 more photos and I just wanted to look at those and not the 271, I could click on previous import and it would just show me those. But when you're doing this, these images live in both all photographs and previous import. So remember, we're not looking at the actual images, we're looking at the previews of the images here. All right, so our catalog is like our global giant, it's like the Earth, okay? It's the Earth, it's the planet. And then under it we have different forms of organization, which would be like continents and countries, right? So we have folders. Folders is a really easy way to organize images. This is creating folders inside of Lightroom so we're not making those subfolders in our raw image folder, we're making them in Lightroom. And then collections is another really, really powerful organizational tool that we're going to use and you're going to get a lot of use out of. Publishing services, I don't ever mess with. I don't, I fully, it's a way to get images into these other programs and publish your images for the internet. I don't ever have to do that. So, catalog, folders, collections are important. Down here we have our import and export button. Those are going to be important. You guys already figured out the import one in the last video. We'll talk about export later on. And down here we have what is called our film strip. So if you ever taken a darkroom photo class, you know what a film strip is. These are all of my images. The film strip is really nice because it's stable between the different modules. So as I click into different modules, our film strip is always consistent down here. You can always navigate through your images. So, right, I can go through my images down here on the film strip, or I can go through them up here, right? So it's just different ways of running through the same information. Over on the right, we have, these are our editing tabs. These are like quick edit tabs. These are showing us the makeup of our photographs. This isn't where we're going to edit our photos. We're going to do that in a different module. But this is the actual makeup of the photos that we have selected. So if I select this photo of my backyard, this is the histogram. It's telling me the color and exposure information of that image. It's also showing me the ISO that the image was taken at, the lens length, the aperture, the shutter speed, right? All of that's in there. So let me go to a different picture. Same thing, right? Different settings, and it's figuring out my histogram. There it is. So it'll show you a preview of your histogram and all of that information. And then if we go down, we go quick developing. So you can, in the library module, do a little quick developing. You don't really want to do this. This is like probably the most bonehead way to edit a photo. We're going to learn proper ways of editing. Keywording. So right now, we're just starting out with photography and Lightroom. So we might only have 241 pictures. But someday you're going to have, if you keep going with photography, you're going to have hundreds of thousands of photos. In my library catalog that I use, or I'm sorry, my Lightroom catalog that I use for my own photographic practice, I have probably close to 80,000 photos in it. And if I want to easily search images, I could go to a photo. Let's go to this first one here. And I could put in keywords. Let's see, this photo was taken in the Sierra Ancha, right? I could put that keyword. I could say barrel. Wait, is that how you spell barrel? Sure. Rust, right? I could put all those things, and then I can later search my photo using these keyword tags. That could be very useful once you have a lot of photos. There's keyword suggestions, and then down here, keyword list. We don't need to worry about that unless you get really into using keywords. Metadata is the information that your camera records other than just the photo. So it's showing us that this is the name of the file, this is where it's kept, the metadata status is up to date, the capture time, this photo was made at 6:44 and 52 seconds on February 28th, 2016. That's probably accurate. These are the dimensions, the crop, the exposure, the focal length, the camera it was made with, the lens it was made with. So all of that stuff is recorded. Your camera might even be set up to record the GPS location of all your photographs. Kind of crazy. And then comments. This would only be really useful if you're sharing your catalog with somebody, like a publisher, and you wanted to give them comments about the images. So I don't really use comments. That doesn't seem important to me. Metadata is interesting to check, but not something I need all the time. So really the main thing I use over here is the histogram. So the last thing I want to talk about in the organization of Lightroom is up here. These big menu items, these are what are called modules, or you could think of them as different rooms inside of Lightroom. So there's library, develop, map, book, slideshow, print, and web. There is, how many of those? 2, 4, 6, 7 of these. Luckily, we're only going to have to cover 2 of these, library and develop. 99.9% of things that I do in Lightroom are in the library module or the develop module. So the library module, which we're in right now, is where we're going to look at our photos, organize, and catalog our photos. Okay, this is where we organize and catalog. The develop module is where we're going to edit our photos. Okay, all of these modules, these rooms, are all connected in the same house, Lightroom. So they're all connected. So when I edit a photo, it's going to edit the photo that also lives in the library module. Map is just a way to geotag your photo, so you can end up with a map with all these images all over it that show where you've been. Could be useful and cool. Book is you can there's a blurb plugin to Lightroom where you can edit a book layout from Lightroom, which is kind of cool. Slideshow, make a slideshow, make inkjet prints from Lightroom, or export photos to the web. Once again, we're only going to use the library module and the develop module. So that is a basic tour around the Lightroom interface. Let me know if you all have questions about that. But that's a pretty quick rundown of what the library module looks like. Actually, let me show you develop really quick. So I'm going to go from the library module and then click on develop. It's going to take a second. And now here's the same photo in the develop module. Notice that we no longer have navigator. We do have our film strip. I told you that's going to be consistent. And now we have all of our basic edits, which we're going to be learning in a future video. So that's what it looks like in develop. That's what it looks like in library. And if you ever wanted to expand your window to get rid of this stuff so you don't have to look at it, you can just hit this arrow right there or expand it like that. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions. Talk to y'all soon.